Oh, welcome everyone. I did see a few fellow New Yorkers flashing through the chat there, so good to have some East Coast folks in there. I know there's a lot of California folks, but and it looks like honestly all over the place. So living here in upstate New York, where we have real winters, not other places, but I spent the last 20 years in education, about 11 years teaching grade 4. I loop with a class from grade 4 to grade 5. And the last 5 years, I've worked as a math intervention specialist with grades 3 through 6, as Jan mentioned. This current year, I was reassigned to grade 5 with our reducing of class sizes and such like that. And I'm currently teaching in a hybrid model. So that's probably another webinar for a whole nother day and how to do that. But moving on. So as I was saying, my theme here you'll start to see come true to life with the different song references, and if as you know, we'll get into this. So my journey of assessment began, as I say here, sitting on the DOK of the Bay, the dock of the Bay. About 4 years ago, I worked as a job share, teaching part-time and working for a curriculum company part-time, and we were developing and writing assessments that ultimately became hosted by Edulastic. So that was my first foray into Edulastic and that platform for hosting assessments. And that deep dive into assessment really taught me about assessment design and DOK and all these various things that really mean something when you're looking at assessing students. At the time, was working as an interventionist, so it was helpful to target that specific group of students 3 through 6. And then the year following that, my district did a pilot where we had an Edulastic enterprise license, which was interesting to be able to share data between teachers and such like that. So that's something, again, for a whole another workshop that would be useful as far as how to share all that information. So my wife worried that this presentation would date me, so I apologize. If you're a child of the 80s and 90s, you get all of this, Mr. Howard Jones, little Van Halen here. So the first part of any RTI obviously is 3 major components in RTI, as some folks that are familiar with it know, other folks that may not be as familiar, but you're talking about high quality, scientifically based classroom instruction, ongoing student assessment, whether it's formative or summative, and also that regular feedback loop, which is one of my biggest targets, is that feedback loop where I'm giving students feedback, which is a nice feature of Edulastic that you can do that, typing in that feedback either per question or per assessment. And then, of course, progress monitoring along the way. And the 3 tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, obviously, again, I'll kind of be brief, but we're talking about, that high quality classroom instruction that every student gets, tier 2 being that target intervention, and then your highest tier, your most intensive tier, tier 3, where you might be meeting with a student every single day. So how does all this fit together as far as my references here? So I'd like to get to know you well. Right? With a student, I want to know what is their last point of success. And in finding that last point of success, it's very helpful to be able to start where the most challenging work and work your way back, and building on-ramps to grade level content. So how does Edulastic feed into this? As you can see on the left side of the screen here, they have these filters for questions. And those filters can be drilled down to one specific standard, one specific grade level. You can see that I just kind of grabbed this screenshot looking for 5th grade standards for a specific intervention based on an assessment I just gave. And as I said, you're building those on-ramps to grade level content. And one of the tools that I use quite often is this coherence map on Achieve the Core. So I'm going to try to share that tab, and hopefully this works. Are you seeing my coherence maps?
Yes, looks good.
Not mine, but the Achieve the Core coherence maps. So if you've never seen this tool before, it's kind of your Cliff Notes version of the progression documents. So I'm working in 5th grade, but I really want to know, what do the standards link to and link from when I'm working with a student. So if I, for example, just as the first one that pops up, NBT1, which is multi-digit representation of 10 times as much, 1/10 as much, I can map that standard all the way back here's for NBT1A, and then I can keep going all the way back to a 2nd grade and such. So what that allows me to do is then go back into Edulastic, and I can target those specific standards by searching within those filters for those specific standards that I want to be able to target with a student. So let me get back to my original presentation here, which, hold on, sorry. Okay, we're back. Yes?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the patience. So by drilling down on those specific standards, I can get to know a student very, very well in what he or she can or cannot do at the time. Are you seeing my notes again? Sorry.
No, we're not.
Okay, good. All right, moving on. So in this particular model here, the screenshot of the report here, you can see along the side here what that student can do right now, right? They're not mastering certain standards. And what I always say to teachers with whom I'm working, tell me what the kid can and cannot do right now. Don't tell me that they have an 85 in ELA or they have an 85 in social studies or math. Tell me what they can and cannot do. And that's what I can do with this particular type of report. And if you want to get really nerdy and dig down into the reports, you can dig down into the reports pretty deeply if you want. So what I like to be able to do is provide those branching questions, whereby, like I said, start with something more challenging and work my way back to something easier rather than the other way around, right? I can do one example of a challenging assessment or a challenging particular question and know the student can or cannot do it and work my way back to something that student can then more easily do. And there's that last point of success. So at that point, things can only get better, right? That's what we're going to start working on is what can the student do now and what am I working towards as the student is attempting to bridge back or build on-ramps to grade level content. So our Jimmy Buffett fans, here we are. And how do you like me now, right? That's what we're working towards, building successes and celebrating those successes. So this is one of my favorite reports, is more of a what I call a portfolio over time. So as you look on the kind of the center of the report here, you can see all of the questions, and I kind of zoomed in on the tabs that are at the top of the screen there. So you can start to see the total questions that a student has done on a given standard, how many of those questions they have gotten correct, and what percentage of those. It's still useful to know what percentage of the questions they got correct, and really now start to drill down. Okay, I have, for example, 10 questions that student has done and they've gotten 3 correct, for example. That's a lot different scenario than if they've done 20 questions and gotten 3 correct, or some other comparison of standards to correct versus, or questions correct to versus not correct. So again, it can get really nerdy digging into the report. So here we are. And as students start to work on more and more practice, you know, this particular report is just a quick screenshot of what a report might look like for a given specific assessment. Again, targeting what that student can or cannot do right now is really helpful. And this is just kind of the bottom of that report. It wouldn't fit on one page. So here we are now, back to those filters of the questions. I know what the student needs. I know what on-ramps they need to build and the distance I need to go. I can go back in using that coherence map and also now helping students to build success. And how do you like me now? So in this example, this is a student that I was working with on reading and literature, and you can see the various standards we targeted. They might be grade level, they might be below grade level. Either way, I can now look at this and say what they've mastered or what they've exceeded mastery, and we start the whole process over again as far as setting goals and things like that. Also letting that student know that in the RTI process, obviously, it's not a lifetime sentence, right? This is a student, you come in, you get the support you need, you build back to grade level, and we move you on to work with your class with the idea, obviously, that you can bring them back in when that support is needed. And again, another report that I really liked is seeing a whole class here. Again, I'm kind of bridging the gap between my intervention practice in the past and my grade 5 group right now. And something like this just really shows me what specific things I'm going to do next as far as intervention, because my intervention nowadays is happening within the classroom. It's not happening in a separate space with a small group. I don't have that luxury. So something like this allows me to now create a very targeted intervention assessment or a practice assessment even that I can deliver to students and they can do on their time outside of class when they have more time to work, especially when they're working as a hybrid model with their home some part of the week. So, went backwards, sorry. So that's the short and sweet of it. I mean, there's a lot that you can dig down into to help support students in here. Again, if there's questions,